Sweet corn planting season usually sneaks up on us before we know it, but it is important to get your corn planted as early as possible so you can beat the corn earworm. One tip though, if you're planting some of the new super sweet varieties, make sure your soil is warm enough. Here's where a soil thermometer comes in handy. Insert a thermometer 4 inches deep in the soil and make sure that it is at least 60 degrees. Otherwise, if we get into some rainy weather, the corn seed can rot in place. Now, I've already planted a 5-foot row, 10-foot long block of original Butterfruit variety from Park Seed. It is a wonderful super sweet corn. We're looking forward to a good harvest of that. And I'm getting ready to plant a new variety from Johnny Seeds up in Maine, and this is called Quickie. It's ready in 67 days, and we're going to time it to see if it actually turns out that way for us. I'm just going to sow 1 row of it for starters. Now, if you're planting sweet corn, make sure you give it plenty of space. Put your rows 3 feet apart. Make sure you sow enough seed. You need to end up with 3 seeds per foot of row as you sow your seed, and then as they grow, thin them down to 1 foot apart. Remember also that corn is a heavy feeder, and so you're going to need to make sure that you have good fertility in your soil before you begin to plant. And when it's about 1 foot tall, plan to side dress it with nitrogen. Well, I'll finish the rest of this planting in a few minutes. I want to show you the next variety we're putting in. It's an ornamental corn called Little Jewels. And these are just beautiful little kernels of corn. It's an ornamental variety of corn. Very, very small. It's mostly meant just for tabletop decorations, although you could eat it. It's ready in 95 days, and it is a flint type of corn. You could grind it up for flour if you wanted to, or for cornmeal, but mostly it's just to enjoy over the holidays, and it will keep from year to year, as long as you don't get any pests in it as you store it in a dry place. Well, the next variety I want to hop over to before I plant the rest of that bed is an heirloom variety. It's a type of dent corn. Now, dent corns were originally raised or grown for cornmeal and for flour, and this variety is called Bloody Butcher, and this was given to me by an heirloom gardener, a fellow who collects antique seeds in Tulsa. His name is Stephen McCartney, and he gave me a few seeds of these. I don't have enough for a full planting, so I'm going to plant it very, very sparsely. But Bloody Butcher is ready in 120 days. It is an heirloom variety that has been known to be planted and grown by farmers since 1845. So I'll go ahead and plant it, but very, very sparsely, so that I'll make sure to have a block of corn. It's important if you're planting any kind of corn in a garden that you have a minimum of 4 rows for cross-pollination. Corn is pollinated by the wind, and so you want to make sure that you have a solid enough block that when it does tassel, that the pollen can be transmitted from those tassels to the silks successfully. Now, we're planting all these varieties of corn on one day today to showcase them for your benefit. In fact, take a look at how colorful that Bloody Butcher is. It's really an unusual variety. Now, understand, because it's an open pollinated type, it is somewhat variable, also like a lot of the Indian corns, in that you can plant a red seed but end up with an ear that may be white or red and white striped or solid red. Now, if you have an heirloom variety like this, don't plant all of the seed. Save some of it in your freezer in case you have a crop failure. Then you'll have some for next year, just in case. Of course, if you do get a crop, you'll have more than you need. This next variety of corn is Hopi blue corn. Now, the Hopi Indians in northern Arizona consider this a very, very sacred type of corn. It is ground up and used for flour there. And there's another type of corn called blue tortilla. That variety is used for blue corn tortillas, but the Hopi blue corn is a little bit different. And this is some that was also provided to us by a seed saver, but There's also an organization out in Arizona called Native Seed Search, and they specialize in varieties of corn that are sacred to the Indians. Plus, here in Oklahoma, we have a special treasure. Out in Turpin, Oklahoma, there's a man named Carl Barnes, and he collects all kinds of ancient Indian corns. Okay, I'll finish that row in a little bit. There's one last one I want to show you, and it's called Mandan Bride. If you ever heard of the Mandan tribe of Indians up in what is now North Dakota, this variety is named after them. And it is a beautiful, beautiful type of corn. The Mandan Bride should be ready in anywhere from 89 to 98 days. This is one of the easiest varieties of corn that you can grow to grind into flour. It grinds very, very easily with very little waste. If you're going to grow any of these corns that need to be dried down, allow yourself plenty of time in the garden so that they will dry down adequately, and make sure that you store them properly too. Now, with any kind of corn, whether it's sweet corn or field corn that you're going to grow, make sure that you make provisions for controlling raccoons. It's a good idea to set up an electric fence. You can buy it in kit form from a lot of farmer supply stores, and run a 3-strand wire around your garden, starting at about 4 inches off the ground, and each wire about 4 inches apart, and that should help keep the raccoons away.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.